Welcome to GRE. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. On this investing show, it's been a long time since we've discussed investing in yourself. We do that today with an amazing guest on Get Rich Education.
Since 2014, the powerful Get Rich Education podcast has created more passive income for people than nearly any other show in the world. This show teaches you how to earn strong returns from passive real estate investing in the best markets without losing your time being a flipper or landlord. Show host Keith Weinhold writes for both Forbes and Rich Dad Advisors and delivers a new show every week. Since 2014, there's been millions of listener downloads in 188 world nations. He has A-list show guests include top-selling personal finance author Robert Kiyosaki. Get Rich Education can be heard on every podcast platform, plus it has its own dedicated Apple and Android listener phone apps. Build wealth on the go with the Get Rich Education podcast. Sign up now for the Get Rich Education podcast or visit GetRichEducation.com.
You know Mid-South Homebuyers, that top Memphis turnkey provider. I learned that a secret weapon behind their explosive growth is more than just you buying their properties. It's an executive coach. For 9 years now, their CEO, Terry Kerr, and his COO, Pat Nix, have worked privately with a coach who I've now learned from too, and he doesn't market himself online anywhere. After 12 years behind the scenes, that coach is now making himself available exclusively for GRE listeners. His name is Daniel Thomas Hind. If you're a hard-charging business owner or investor who wants to get in the best shape of your life, physically, mentally, and professionally, you can fill out an application for a free consult. This is private one-on-one coaching for those willing to go to uncommon lengths to achieve uncommon results. Thanks to Daniel, we've all become better leaders, better operators, and better men. It started by showing up for ourselves. Now it's your turn. Go to DanielThomasHind.com, H-I-N-D, that's DanielThomasHind.com, and sign up before spots fill. Flock Homes helps multifamily owners exit the operator grind, whether it's your sixplex or a 50-unit apartment, through a 721 exchange. This defers your capital gains tax. It's a strategy long used by institutions. Now you can swap tenants and toilets for passive income and zero management. Request your initial valuation. See if your property qualifies at flockhomes.com/GRE. That's FLOCKhomes.com/GRE.
You're listening to the show that has created more financial freedom than nearly any show in the world. This is Get Rich Education.
Welcome to GRE. From Rome, New York to Rome, Oregon, and across 188 nations worldwide, I'm Keith Weinhold, and you're listening to Get Rich Education. Your hardest opponent out there is rarely the market, the economy, your boss, or even your schedule. Your opponent is the part of you that knows what to do and still hesitates to do it. You are your own biggest obstacle, and deep down, you know it. I know this about myself too. We all keep sort of choosing familiar frustration over unfamiliar progress. A person will stay in the same bad routine, same underperforming relationship, same cluttered inbox, same poor money habit, or same low energy pattern, not because you love it, but because it's predictable and it's safe. Growth, though, requires a new identity. Staying stuck only requires repetition, and we all know how to do that already. You delay asking for the sale, or you delay asking the attractive woman out, and you justify that by telling yourself, oh, you're still refining the strategy. But deep down, you know that the real issue is discomfort. We're talking about the skills that build yourself today, perhaps somewhat like we did in 2 episodes with Chris Voss when you learned how to be a good negotiator. One thing I've learned from today's guest is about culture. Culture is governed by what you tolerate. At your company, do you have a policy where you've got to reply to an email within 24 hours? Well, if you start tolerating 48-hour replies, you've tolerated less, and that becomes the new culture. And it also shows that you're going to let other policies slide too if you let this one slide. Do you expect your property manager to physically inspect your unit every 6 to 12 months? That's something I kind of like. Well, then don't tolerate anything less than that. And parenting is all about tolerance. I'm going to ask our guest about that. I'm also going to ask, how would you even know when you're burnt out at work? What are the hard signs to look for? How would you even know? Another thing that I want to ask about is how he discusses that you are the way that you are because of the shape that you took when you were under pressure. But I want to start by talking about health and then transitioning. Today's guest talks in a way where, at least once today, I'm pretty sure you're going to say to yourself, gosh, it sounds like he's talking about me. It's been the most interesting thing. Earlier this year, I learned that a lot of top business owners, including some that you've heard here on the show, have had their life transformed, including pretty explosive growth in their business from working with an executive coach. And then I learned from them all, it's the same guy. It's the same coach. I discovered that he's helping a lot of hard-charging business owners and investors basically get in the best shape of their life, physically, mentally, professionally. He's been especially good with types that burn out. He's also the founder of something called the Apprenticeship, where he helps corporate professionals become pro coaches. In a former life, he was a COO who helped grow a fast-scaling company tenfold, and today he's a marathon runner. He's also a literary novelist working on his second book. And since I met him in person in California recently, I've learned from him too. So I'm pleased to announce that we have this sort of a secret weapon behind so many people on the show today. Welcome to GRE, Daniel Thomas Hind.
Keith, thank you. That's one heck of an introduction. I am going to have to save that and bring it with me. That's very kind of you to say. And it's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, you're like, gosh, I can't possibly live up to that now. For those in the audio only, Hind is spelled Hind. Daniel, I'm happy to have you because I know and I've learned that you just really don't market yourself much, frankly, because you don't have to. You just sort of get these organic referrals from people that you already coach. But you do have a website, and it's just uncanny how when I visited your site, people are doing video testimonials, and I'm like, I know that person, and I know that person, but these people hadn't told me about you for so long. And Daniel, I think when it comes to making the best version of ourselves, or at least moving that way, we talk about wealth building on this show an awful lot, but that has quite an intersection with health.
Yeah, it does. So my philosophy is first and foremost that health is wealth, right? It's a cliche, but so often hard-charging executive types, whether those are business owners or members of a leadership team, founders or investors, so often these types of folks, because they're so passionate, they're so driven by the thing that they're working on, that they're building, that they'll often let other things in their life go. And sometimes it's just a season, but more often than not, at least with the people that I work with and see, that season turns into many seasons, turns into years, turns into a pattern, right? And it becomes this pattern, this ingrained way of being that, unless gone unchecked, can really cause problems in the long run. And so a lot of people don't exactly know what executive coaching is. And it can mean many different things for many different people. For me, it really is the intersection of your physical well-being, which of course includes your diet, your fitness, your nervous system, the health of your nervous system, your sleep quality. It has to do with the way that you organize and structure your days, right? So many of us just enter into a default way of doing life, and we don't
We're
really
creatures of habit. Yeah.
We're creatures of habit. And for successful people, those habits have helped us succeed and get to where we are. But because of that, we often don't stop and think, well, is this actually serving me anymore? Or has some of these habits that used to be healthy and good for me, have they kind of metastasized into something not so healthy, maybe even dangerous or destructive? And then for these sort of people who I'm working with, right, many of them are at the top of organizations. And so these habits, these ingrained ways of being might seep out and filter out into the company culture, into how we interact with people below us, right? And so my work is an intersection of personal health, personal development, business health, business development, company culture. And so we're looking at the leader, the founder, how he shows up for himself in life, how he shows up for others, and how that defines the world around him that he is usually, or she, doesn't have to be he or she, is usually at the center of, right? And so it's quite profound because I get to be as intimately involved with people I really respect, people who have accomplished so much and who hold themselves to such high standards and still want more, still know that there's better, still know that there's so much of themselves that they can improve upon, right? So I get a really meaty, holistic, complete inside look of these people's lives and their businesses. And so I get to work in like many businesses at once with incredible people. I'm very blessed. I'm very lucky.
Well, when it comes to one not having their health, I know a lot of times you told me about how you'll have a, quote, successful person, but they're successful in business, not their health. I think a lot of it comes down to one's mental conditioning, even from when they were substantially younger, shaping our worldview. I think a lot of people are programmed with this. I'm supposed to be X. I'm supposed to get this degree. Within 10 years, I'm supposed to be executive level with a corner office, and I'm supposed to have an 8-figure net worth by that age. Not that all of these are bad things individually. In fact, it could be a reflection that you're contributing to society. But, it's sort of, are you overweighted toward professional accomplishments? Is this program supposed to do stuff that you got from somewhere, the stuff that's making you unbalanced and ultimately unfulfilled? So really, it's this success in one area comes at the expense of what? That's how I think about it. And I know you have a number of stories of helping people with just this.
I do. And so let me first comment on the pattern that you're describing, and then I think the best way to really talk about it is to show what that looks like in an actual example. So it's this shape you took under pressure concept is a concept that I talk about with all of my clients. So every successful entrepreneur that I know has developed a specific psychological structure that they've adopted to help them survive in the early years, right? When it was just them or maybe them and their partner and they were going for it. They were relentless. They were acting with an insane sense of urgency, an inability to sit still. Everything felt at risk, and they really had to sacrifice basically everything else to make this thing happen. It's not the case of everybody, but most people that I know who have accomplished a lot, that they share a similar origin story. And it kind looks like,
go all in for 5 years, forget everything else kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yes.
It looks like some version of that. And so for the ones who succeed and make it through that phase, that's incredible. But, the cliche is what got you here won't get you there. It's like when by operating that way, you have adopted specific ways of being, psychological patterns, ways of relating to other people, beliefs about yourself and beliefs about like how unreliable other people can be. And it can really turn into a dangerous operating system when you have to start building a team and training that team and relying on that team and then creating a shared team culture, right? A company culture. It's not just like silly exercises that you put on the wall, like these are our values, doing like trust falls backwards. Like a culture is the behaviors that you take on and like the uniform that you put on that everybody on the team has bought into, right? And so unfortunately, most cultures are shaped by the leadership team's worst qualities, because those qualities are the things that like we don't hold together, right? Like if it's the person who lashes out because somebody doesn't get it immediately. A perfect example of somebody who really has embodied all parts of the coaching, from health to your inner psychology and mindset and how that impacts your business health and your team and the corporate culture, is my client, Terry Kerr. He is the founder of Mid-South Homebuyers. And I know that Terry's been a guest on this show a number of times. What an incredible person. I've had the pleasure of working with Terry for close to 10 years now. And I've been working with his COO for close to 8 years as well. So I've gotten a real inside look at that team. And Terry, when he came to me, had let go of parts of himself that he had always held sacred, which was his health and his wellness. Long story short, we started working together. I helped him redesign the way that his life was constructed. Pretty much, no surprise, everything about his day was oriented towards business, from the second that he woke up to the second that he went to bed. So we really re-architected. We put a lot of intentionality into re-architecting the flow of his day so that he can make sure that he's prioritizing other parts of himself and his family, his personal health, etc. Over time, he lost, I think that first year, he lost something like 60 pounds. He took on meditation as a practice. He started exercising daily. And Terry was a skateboarder growing up. So he was always, he was big into fitness and in his own ways, and just had let it go for the sake of the company. Because for years, it was just him building this thing. And most people would say, wow, I've done it. Like, I'm successful. I overcame these things that were weighing me down, and we're done here. But Terry was so opened up by the experience that he wanted to keep going. And he didn't even know what that meant. But over time, he's invited me into the way that he operates, period. As a leader, making decisions for his business, how does he interact with his employees, with his leadership team? So I've effectively become like the inside man. I basically become like an AI, but a person who you can run decision-making through, right? So it's to check those parts, those impulses, those impulsive parts of ourselves that just like want to do something. I've become like a check for him. So we're communicating on a daily basis. What are the most important things that we need to accomplish today? Are we making sure that you're spending time with your family? Are we making sure that you're getting your exercise in? Is your assistant, organizing your food and dinners and everything else for you? Where are you going out to restaurants, right? It's that level of intentionality of being part of almost every decision that over time, like at first we have to put a lot of attention into because we're building new habits and we're breaking old ones. But over time, these become ingrained, and then we can start to take on new projects, new habits and routines and ways of being that we want to basically program. And so over these past 10 years, the company has absolutely exploded. And I'm not going to say that it's because of me, but I am going to say it's because Terry has taken on personal growth and growth in general as a vocation, and not allowing his own stops and blocks get in the way of the company going where it needs to go. And so over that time, they've really changed the leadership structure. They've let a lot of people who weren't cultural fits go. They have assembled an entire leadership team now below the owners who have a lot more responsibility, whereas everything used to just go right up to the owners and they were pretty much deciding on everything. So we've really created a structure, a culture. We've let people go who no longer fit. We've brought new people in who do. And, I will say that it's a direct result of that level of intentionality and specificity that Terry brings to his day every day. And Terry has given me his blessing to talk about him, or else I would never reveal so much of a person's inner life and inner work like that. But it's just, his story is such an inspiring one for me, and that is so cool to get to share with others.
I'm glad that you checked with Terry, because as you're talking about this, I'm thinking, I better talk to Terry after this and ask him if this is okay. But it's been said that culture, including company culture, is not what you say or what you do. It's what you tolerate.
Yeah. Well, that's what we said before is that most founders treat culture as like an HR exercise, right? Meanwhile, the actual culture of the company is it's shaped by the leader's worst qualities.
Yeah.
And so a lot of investors listening to this show probably have teams, whether it's property managers or assistants, contractors, partners, and your team's culture is a mirror of the parts of yourself that you haven't dealt with yet, right? And so it's really your responsibility to fix that. That is the job of the leader. You are at the top, everybody's looking at you. It's not a job for everybody. Most people would prefer not to have that level of attention. And even if you think that you want that level of attention, your true self, the part that wants to just like leave me alone and let me do my work, that part of you, they call it the child, call it the baser self, whatever you want to call it, doesn't want that attention because it requires constant reinvention, constant opening yourself up to take this on. So, yeah, your team's culture is a mirror of the parts of yourself that you haven't dealt with yet. If you fix the leader, you're going to fix the culture. And Mid-South Home Buyers is a perfect example of that.
Yes, this concept about the shape that you take under pressure.
You don't know how to give yourself relief. So here's another case in point. Like this seems like such a simple fix, but you'd be surprised because this is representative of a number of people that I work with. Like Terry hadn't given himself an actual vacation in decades. So
Gosh,
just taking a week or taking 2 weeks to go to Europe, which he and his wife do every year now.
yeah, I know they went to France not long ago.
Yeah, that's representative of a maturation of the person who can trust that the team can take care of things, who can trust that the business isn't going to fall apart because he's not there at the center of it. You know, we form addictions with just being involved, having to read every email, making sure that we're involved in every conversation. Again, that's a sort of ingrained habit that you learn from the beginning because it was just you. You did have to be involved in every conversation. If you weren't, there would be no thing to exist. There would be no business, right? But some people might not have a problem with this. I don't know those people. Most people I do know have a real problem with letting go, with changing, with maturing with the company as it demands so that you're not just bleeding yourself dry day in and day out, right? So physical burnout, cognitive decline, relationship decline, or let's call it numbing, leadership erosion, right? If you don't check these parts of yourself, all this stuff that you've worked so hard to build, this incredible life that you've assembled and your accomplishments, they start to whittle away. So that level of identity crisis is on the table if you don't check these parts of yourself. And so I don't want to sound like doom and gloom, but I am describing the costs of success. These are actually typical for people who get to the very top. And the thing is that there aren't a lot of people at the very top, so you don't really want to talk about it. It sounds ungrateful, or a term I like to call champagne problems, right? Like, oh, look at the multimillionaire, be upset because he has to work so much, right? It's like nobody really is going to have sympathy for that, so you're not going to parade that around. But, you know, these people are people too, and everybody needs outlets, and everybody needs to express themselves, and everybody can change the way that life is. So again, that's where I come in.
Yes, at some point, a leader has got to back off and tell themselves if it gets done 95% of the way that I would have gotten it done, but it doesn't take any of my time, that could very well be a win. And then they're probably not going to be deemed as wearing the micromanagement hat all the time either. We're talking with executive coach Daniel Thomas Hind about the gap that we all have between who we are and who we could be. More when we come back. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. What if you got your mortgage loans the same place I get mine? You sure can at Ridge Lending Group, NMLS 42056. They provided GRE listeners with more loans than anyone because Ridge specializes in investment property. They'll help you build a long-term plan for growing your real estate empire with leverage. Start your pre-qual and even chat directly with President Chaley Ridge. While it's on your mind, start at ridgelendinggroup.com. That's ridgelendinggroup.com. Let me ask you something. If you've worked hard to build wealth, is your money positioned to actually support your goals? A lot of accredited investors leave capital sitting in cash because it feels safe, but inflation and missed income opportunities can quietly erode its value. Freedom Family Investments offers Freedom Notes for investors seeking structured income backed by real estate. It's a straightforward approach built on real assets, not speculation. And full disclosure, I'm an investor myself. What I like is that their team walks you through how it all works so you can decide if it aligns with your portfolio and income goals. Every investment carries risk and nothing is guaranteed, but with a track record of consistent, on-time investor payouts, they've built real credibility. Go to freedomfamilyinvestments.com to book a clarity call or text FAMILY to 66866. That's FAMILY to 66866.
This is GRE Real Estate Investment Coach Naresh Vissa. Don't live below your means, grow your means. Listen to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold.
Welcome back to Get Rich Education. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. We have a different kind of show today. I learned about an executive coach that's behind the success for a number of guests that we've had here on the show. It's just been uncanny at how he's transformed others' lives. And since meeting him in person earlier this year, I've now learned from him too. And you know, Daniel, one of the things I learned about that I didn't know before is some people can get burnt out so bad that not only is it messing with their physical health and it's derailing their relationships, but burnout can actually create cognitive decline and more problems. So first of all, how can one identify when they've reached the burnout point? How will they know?
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously, it doesn't come in a one-size-fits-all, but it usually follows this sort of pattern, right? Let's say, so you've got the portfolio, you've got the cash flow, you've got things are working. On paper, you should be happy, right? On paper, you are living some version of the dream that you told yourself 5, 10, 15 years ago. However, it doesn't feel that way. You feel worse than you did ever before, or at least within the past, recent memory.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So that's the place to start looking. Look, everybody has seasons of just, you got to go through it. Something happens. You need to work really hard. You need to bust it. And that's fine. I'm not talking about direct tiredness or exhaustion. What I'm talking about is more of like an existential, why is this not feeling the way I hoped it would, right? I sacrificed everything for this, for XYZ, whatever XYZ is. And I have XYZ, but it feels so empty, or I can't appreciate it, or I'm always on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And all of this, I'm going to call is some version of burnout, because what that means is that you're not able to actually appreciate your life that you've worked so hard for. And so for some, it's like this never-ending fascination with the future, a constant needing to build. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it comes from almost more of like an addictive place. Like you're addicted to making things happen. You can never slow down. And underneath it all, there's actually no real joy or satisfaction. It's pure adrenaline. It's pure cortisol. And we like the cortisol bump when it's like, we're feeling it. We're just going for it. We're getting it. But there is going to be a day where that flips upside down and the exhaustion is almost impossible, because you don't know how to achieve satisfaction other than through sheer output. It's like a marathon runner who can never stop running, like literally never, right? You're running 20 hours a day. You can't get the high unless you're crushing yourself. And so that's one form of burnout. Another form of burnout is just, I don't have the juice anymore. It's actually experiencing the other side of your nervous system shutting down. It's your body can't produce the raw materials to have you primed and ready to go anymore. So whether that's a hormonal issue, whether that's a cortisol issue, whether you have heart problems, the body keeps the score. So a lot of people that I work with, we're going to have to do a lot of health optimization, working on their diet, their sleep patterns, exercise, getting their hormones dialed in, micronutrients, maybe peptides. There's a lot of things that we need to do to rehabilitate the system because they're just wrecked. When your nervous system is that mainlined for years, it wrecks you in a way that leaves you just totally empty. And it's not like, oh, going on a vacation and getting extra sleep is going to fix this. No, this is like, you need months and months of targeted repair. It doesn't mean that you're completely useless. You can't be working. But what I am saying is you're going to need to reprioritize. Priority means number one, right? So what are your priorities? As we've been discussing today, it's clear that the sort of person that I work with, and if this is at all resonating with you, the listener, the sort of person that you are, is somebody who is so focused on your mission. You do feel the sense of mission. You are so goal-oriented. And that's the best part of life is you wake up every day and you know what you want and you're going for it. And I would never want to change that about anybody who has that, because I think we're all looking for that at the end of the day. That is the sweet spot of life, when you have found that thing and you're going for it. My job is never to make that wrong. My job is to actually support the human being who is operating on that level to make sure that they can stay on that level, right? So without doing that, the problem is that you actually lose the thing that you love the most. You lose the joy. You lose the energy for it. I mean, I've worked with people who are on the cusp of selling their business simply because the weight of having to wake up every day and go in and work with others and like lead the ship, it just felt so overbearing because, no surprise, this person had gone 20 years without actually taking care of themselves. They were 60 pounds overweight. They were not sleeping. They were getting maybe 5 hours of sleep a night. The culture has changed online over the past few years, which is a good thing. But a lot of people used to wear, I don't sleep at all as like a badge of honor, right? Again, this person's marriage was on the ropes. They weren't spending time with their children. They'd become a shell of a person who was miming their normal life. They were kind of pantomiming normal life. They were going through it, but they weren't really there. And the weight, think about it like this. When you're tired, when you get a bad night of sleep, like a really bad night of sleep, or maybe, God forbid, 2 nights of bad sleep in a row, every little thing that next day is grating, right?
Yeah.
The person who cuts you off, it's that much more annoying, right? That meeting that was supposed to happen, the person has to cancel. And it's like, oh my God, my whole day was centered around this. How selfish of them, right? Everything becomes that much more grating. So imagine that times 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, right? The weight of everything feels so impossible that they can't hold it together anymore. And so I know a lot of people who have fantasized about selling their business, the thing that they, which is like so paradoxical because it's not that they need to sell it. It's not that was actually even a goal. It's just that they can't imagine themselves having to do this any longer. And they, for whatever reason, they have blinded themselves from seeing that there's another way. It doesn't have to be this way, but it does take work. And that's a problem because upstream of this, you asked me, what is a sign of burnout? A sign of burnout is saying, oh my God, I can't do anything about this. It's just hopeless, right? This is like a hopeless feeling. So it's not hopeless. And especially for somebody for the sort of person that we're talking about, you're actually more resourced than most people on the planet to take this on.
Like they say, when you have health, you can want everything. When you don't have health, you only want one thing. And how people can be prevented from getting into that condition by avoiding burnout. Some people have such an identity crisis that, they don't know who they are outside the business, and they would kind of be terrified to find out. Maybe that's another sign that you're burnt out and you need some help. But, finding life balance is sort of a tricky word. There are sort of supporters and detractors of the whole life balance school of thought too. But, Daniel, one thing I found interesting is I asked you how you ever got into coaching and how you do this and how you have the aptitude to even help a person go become a coach. And I know you told me that it sort of happened organically. You started helping out friends and then it really grew into something where you help people professionally.
Yeah. So health is clearly my primary focus. It has been for years. And I started as a health and wellness coach 12, 13 years ago. It wasn't something that I designed. I didn't say, this is going to be the thing that I do with my life. It just sort of happened. I'd always been very health conscious. Well, I have been since my 20s, I should say. I actually grew up a fat kid. So I have that ingrained in me. And I think that shaped a lot of the person that I became later on, which is probably a story for another time. But since my early 20s, I've been very health focused, health conscious. And people took notice of that. It became part of my identity. And after graduating from college, a few years out, a lot of my friends went into Wall Street. They were, working 18-hour days, literally sleeping at the office, and started reaching out for help. So I started making guides for them. And then I realized, no, they actually need more personal attention because there's an accountability factor. A lot of people know intellectually what to do, but it's the behavioral, it's the following through with it. It's 10 p.m. and I'm exhausted and I have 3 more hours to go to get this project done. And all I want to do is like shove junk food in my mouth, right? It's those moments where your intellect completely goes away and that primal overdrive takes over. So I started shaping myself into somebody who became extremely available for my clients, where I really thought of myself as a partner in their daily experience. And part of my role is to give them the information. But most of the time, these people are actually the experts of their own lives. So like, right. I couldn't tell a surgeon how to do his work or her work, right? And that's not my role, but my role can be to be a partner in their life experience, to make sure that they're following through with their intentions. These people hold themselves to very high standards. Are you following through with that? How are we making your goals achievable on a daily basis? So let's think about the long term, the medium term, the week term, and then the daily term, right? What are the rocks that we're moving this month, this week, today? Actually being able to share all these things, right? Talking about the hard things. This thing happened at work. When it came to food and health coaching, I just want to go and blow off steam and go to the club tonight or go drinking with my friends or whatever. And, having somebody to actually talk that through with to make sure that, yeah, but how is that going to impact tomorrow? And this other thing that you said you wanted to accomplish, right? So as a young man, I had no training going into any of this other than my own fascination with health, my own health transformation and journey in my early 20s. But this, call it menage of personal growth, routine building, habit building, psychological construct of why do we know better but do the opposite? Why do we do things that are wrong for us, right? And then how do we check that part of us and build new patterns? So as I grew in my entrepreneurial journey and as an operator, I started to incorporate what I was learning in the work with my clients. And I started to choose clients who were growth oriented and who tended to be entrepreneurs or people who were building things or what then turned into members of leadership teams, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, it's been this symbiotic journey of my personal growth informs the work that I do with my clients and vice versa. And then, of course, over time, I got more formal training and have never stopped trying to become better so that I can really service my clients as well as possible. I mean, they put a lot of trust in this relationship. And from my side, I try to show up as the most powerful service provider they've ever experienced. I really think of myself as a partner, less of a coach, more of like a partner. I think of myself as like the COO of their life. I am extremely present for them. We're communicating throughout the day, through text, through voice memo. We do weekly calls.
Yes, it was kind of funny, Daniel. I remember when I first asked what your coaching style was like. Like I asked if you do a weekly email or a Zoom call with those people you help. I quickly learned, oh no, it's not like that at all.
No, we're in the trenches together. Anybody on the outside of your life wouldn't necessarily know that I'm there on your team. I'm on the phone behind the screen, but it's because I want this to be as private of an experience as possible. So full confidentiality. This is very private. I become somebody that you can share the scariest, worst, most vulnerable parts of yourself, not judge you, and help you turn those into strengths. Like I said, we're game planning just about every day together. And really, I give as much energy as you're going to give. So somebody who is resistant to this sort of work, you're not going to get a lot out of it. I can't force anything because it's not like I'm in the room with you, right? We are communicating digitally, but I do try to make myself as present in your life as possible, because a lot of people at the top don't have a lot of people that they trust. They're always providing for other people. They don't provide for themselves as much. They let themselves go. So to have somebody who's giving that back to them can be very, 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 very life affirming and life giving. And yeah, I feel like I have the best job in the world that really nobody knows about, that I couldn't have possibly constructed or imagined for myself either. And it's like a very unique thing in the world. And I'm just I'm so grateful that I can do it.
It is. It gets so personal. Yes, you're frequently texting and messaging people. And yeah, I mean, you must know a lot of information before that client's spouse even does in a lot of cases. Yeah, what an unusual and interesting thing to be doing. Well, Daniel, I hope it's not an imposition, but if you're still open to it, I know you mentioned before that, though we haven't known each other all that long, but just based on our mutual friends, that you would potentially offer private one-on-one coaching to GRE listeners. So if you're still open to that, tell us about it and what it takes to apply to work with you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I do have spots available. So if anybody listening today thought, wow, the way that he's speaking about his clients is how I feel about myself, right? Anything that I said, then I'd say you're a good candidate. So the best way to get in touch with me is just to go to my website. It's my full name, Daniel Thomas Hind, HIND.com. And you can fill out an application. And if you're a good fit, we'll get on a call. It's a free consultation. And on that call, we talk about you. And I'm going to find out what it is that you actually want, what it is that's getting in the way, and how I might be able to serve. And that's the only way that we can work together. There's one offering. It's private one-on-one coaching, and it is an uncommon way to get extraordinary results. So I'm looking for people who believe that there's more. And if you lead with that, then you're gonna get what you want. So yeah, for anybody who that resonates with, I would love to talk to you.
Oh, well, Daniel, this has been terrific. I think you said at least one thing that resonates with a lot of people where they thought, oh my gosh, I can see myself with what he is describing right now, because we all have this gap between who we are and who we could be, the gap and the gain. If this is potentially of interest to you, yes, thanks, Daniel. You can visit danielthomashind.com. That's been great having you here on the show.
Thanks, Keith. It's been a real pleasure. And it's been a pleasure getting to know you as well. So more to come.
The ideal person that Daniel helps is someone named Pierre. Pierre is between the ages of 38 and 50. He's either a tech founder, agency owner, online business owner, real estate investor, or some other flavor of entrepreneur who has built a business doing $500K to $5 million plus a year and is taking home around $350K or more than that. And by every measure that other people use to judge a life, Pierre has won, and he knows it. That's part of what makes this so confusing for him, because Pierre's pain points are physical burnout, which Daniel and I talked about, cognitive decline from the burnout. And before I met Daniel, I didn't even know that burnout could cause cognitive decline, leadership erosion, a marriage on autopilot, where a marriage becomes just another thing that you're managing rather than living. Pierre's also got an identity crisis, and he's got success as the trap, because by every measure that other people use to judge a life, Pierre has won. And that's what makes a situation like this so confusing, because see, he can't complain to anyone since from the outside, everything looks perfect. But here's what makes someone like Pierre coachable. He's a winner. He's always expected more of himself than anyone around him would dare to ask. He's someone who has never been satisfied with good enough, and he's always been willing to get uncomfortable to unlock the next level. He didn't build a multi-million-dollar business by accident. You build that by being relentless, being honest with yourself, and refusing to coast. And that same instinct is the reason that Pierre knows he needs coaching. He's not looking for someone to make him feel better about where he is. He's looking for someone to grab him by the shoulders and hoist him into the best version of himself that he knows is still in there. He wants a revamp: health, business, marriage, identity, creativity, purpose, the whole thing. He wants to feel like himself again, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to get there. Pierre's dream outcome is that 12 months from now, he is the healthiest, most creatively alive, highest agency version of himself that he's ever been. He runs the business on his terms. He has built or launched the thing that he's been sitting on for years. Maybe it's the new product, or maybe it's the book that he's always wanted to write. He's taking vacations with his family. He has a phone off policy from dinner time on so that he's present, and he knows who he is when he's not performing. In fact, there's very little performing because he's in flow and the magic is back. So Pierre really describes the journey. Big thanks to Daniel Thomas Hind today. So great to host him, considering that he rarely does public appearances like this. Next week, it'll be back to our core real estate content. Hey, and a thanks too to the amazing Terry Kerr, the founder of Mid-South Homebuyers. He's such a giving guy that it's really no surprise that he would let his story be told for your benefit. So we got to talk about the part that you don't see here. What's behind a person as successful as a property provider to all these hundreds or thousands of investors across the nation. If you think that performance coaching can help you, you can apply. But since it is highly personalized one-on-one coaching, he can only take a select few, but it's a rare opportunity. You can do so at danielthomashind.com. And from there, you can go on and talk about your favorite subject, which is talking about yourself with him. Until next week, I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. Don't quit your daydream.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Get Rich Education, LLC exclusively.
The preceding program was brought to you by your home for wealth building, GetRichEducation.com.